All right, let's dive into the world of AI and education. Specifically, how AI can help us learn to code. Ever feel like learning to code is like, I don't know, trying to solve a Rubik's Cube in the dark?
Yeah, it can definitely be a challenge, especially for beginners.
Well, there's this AI system called Goliath that wants to make learning to code a lot less intimidating.
That's a great way to put it. Goliath is all about making coding education more accessible and engaging.
So it's like having a personal coding coach right there on your computer.
Sort of. It tackles a big problem for teachers, which is constantly coming up with fresh and engaging exercises.
I can imagine that gets old fast. Coming up with new coding challenges all the time, what does Goliath actually do to help with that?
Well, it acts as the sort of tireless assistant for teachers, churning out unique coding challenges, ones that adapt to how the student is doing.
So it's not just a static set of exercises. It actually changes things up based on the student's progress.
Exactly. But before we get into how it does that, maybe it's helpful to take a step back just to make sure everyone's on the same page. When we talk about programming exercises, the kind you find in a coding class, what do those usually look like?
Yeah, good point. Remind me, what are the basic elements of a typical coding exercise?
Think of it this way. You have a problem statement, which is basically the coding puzzle you need to
All
solve.
right, the challenge itself.
Then you have some code. Maybe it's complete, maybe it's missing some pieces that the student has to fill in.
Okay, so some starting code to work with.
And lastly, you have a space to either write your solution or to choose the right answer from a set of options.
Gotcha. So the classic multiple choice format or a coding area where you write the solution yourself.
Exactly. Those are the basic building blocks. And Goliath takes those pieces and figures out how to automate and personalize them.
So it's not trying to reinvent the wheel. It's working with those familiar types of exercises
Hmm.
and making them more dynamic and engaging.
Right. They focused on three types: writing code from scratch, completing partially written code, and predicting the output of a code snippet.
Okay, the bread and butter of coding education. Makes sense. So how does it actually do that? How does it take those basic exercise types and turn them into something more engaging and personalized?
Well, at its heart, Goliath uses a combination of AI models, kind of like a tag team of artificial intelligence.
Ooh, tag team AI. I like it.
One model is really good at crafting those problem statements, the little coding puzzles we talked about.
Right, so it's coming up with the challenge itself.
And the other AI model is more of a code generating machine. It builds the code that students will be working with.
Wow, so there's a lot of AI horsepower under the hood here. But I'm guessing teachers don't just hand over all the control to the robots, right? How do they make sure the exercises align with what they're teaching and the level of their students?
That's where Goliath's secret weapon comes in.
Templates.
Templates. Tell me more. Teachers create these reusable blueprints that the AI uses as a starting point. Think of it like a recipe for a coding challenge.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So the teacher sets up the basic structure of the exercise, and the AI fills in the details.
Exactly. The teacher provides the ingredients, and the AI does the cooking, whipping up different versions each time.
So each student might get a slightly different version of the exercise, but it's still testing the same core concept.
That's the idea. It keeps things fresh and challenging. And to make those templates even more flexible, teachers use this special language, kind of like code, but designed specifically for creating these templates. We call it the Goliath DSL.
Hold on, DSL, like the old internet thing. What does that stand for here?
It stands for domain-specific language. It's a way for teachers to give the AI very specific instructions without having to write complex code.
So what kind of instructions can they give? What can they control with this DSL thing?
All sorts of things. They can specify whether the exercise should focus on, say, odd or even numbers, or what kind of input the student should be working with.
Interesting. So instead of having to manually create tons of variations of the same exercise, they can set up a template and let the AI do the heavy lifting.
That's exactly it. And this DSL allows for a lot of customization. For instance, let's say a teacher wants to create an exercise where students have to remove all the odd numbers from a list.
Okay, classic coding challenge.
They can use the DSL to tell the AI to generate lists with different lengths and combinations of numbers, but to always make sure the solution involves removing the odd ones.
So the AI's handling the variations, but the teacher is still in control of the core learning objective.
Right, they're like the puppet master pulling the strings behind the scenes. And this even extends to those tricky wrong answers.
Oh, the wrong answers.
Yeah.
Gotta have those to make sure students are really thinking. Does the AI just make those up too?
Well, not Not exactly. The AI handles generating the different versions of the exercise, but the teachers are the ones who set the traps.
Okay, so the teachers get to be the tricksters here. I like it.
Exactly. They predefine common mistakes that students might make, and then they use the DSL to tell the AI how to create those tempting wrong answers.
So it's like a little game of cat and mouse between the AI and the students?
You could say that. And because the teachers are involved, they can make sure those wrong answers are actually testing students' understanding and not just trying to trick them with random nonsense.
All right, so we've got these templates, this AI tag team working together, and the teachers pulling the strings behind the scenes. Walk me through what happens when a student sits down to actually do an exercise.
Okay, picture this. You're a student. You log in to do your coding practice. You open an assignment, and behind the scenes, Goliath springs into action.
It's showtime.
It looks at the template that the teacher has created, and it decides which type of exercise to generate.
So the student doesn't know what kind of challenge they're going to get.
Exactly. It could be writing code from scratch, completing some existing code, or predicting the output. It's a surprise every time.
I like that. Keeps things interesting. What happens next?
Well, the AI then looks at all those options the teacher embedded in the template, those little bits of variation, and it randomly picks values for each one.
So each time you open an assignment, you could get a completely different problem, even if it's based on the same template.
Exactly. It keeps things fresh, and it makes sure you can't just memorize the answers. You actually have to understand the logic.
Makes sense. So the AI has picked the exercise type and filled in all the variables from the template. Now what?
Now it's time to build the actual exercise. Goliath takes that template and plugs in all the specific values it chose. Like if the template has a spot for an odd or even number, and the AI picked even, it'll adjust the problem statement in the code to reflect that.
So everything matches up perfectly. The code, the challenge, even the wrong answers are tailored to that specific variation. It's like a well-oiled machine.
It is. And for those exercises where you have to predict the output of a code snippet, Goliath actually runs the code in the background.
Wait, really? It's not just theoretical, it's actually testing the code.
Yep. It uses those inputs that the teacher defined in the template to make sure the answers are accurate.
Wow, that's impressive. So even if you get the same exercise type again, the input could be different, and therefore the correct output would be different too.
Exactly. Keeps you on your toes.
This is pretty mind-blowing stuff. I'm already seeing how Goliath could revolutionize how we learn to code.
It's definitely a game changer. It takes all the best parts of traditional coding exercises and makes them way more dynamic and personalized.
I wish I had something like this when I was starting out. All those repetitive drills you pish. But tell me, what did the teachers who actually used Goliath think about it? Did it live up to the hype?
That's a great question, and one we'll dive into right after this break.
Okay, so before the break, we were about to hear what teachers thought about Goliath after actually trying it out in their classrooms. Did they love it? Did they hate it? Give me the scoop.
Well, the researchers sent out a survey to get feedback from teachers, and the results were really encouraging. Overall, teachers were really happy with how easy Goliath was to use.
So, no complicated setup or steep learning curve. That's great to hear.
Exactly. They said the interface was pretty intuitive, and even creating those templates with the DSL wasn't as tricky as they thought it would be.
That's a win. No one wants to spend hours fiddling with software. But what about the most important part, those AI-generated exercises? Did teachers think they were any good?
That's the real test, right? And from what teachers said, Goliath really delivered. They were impressed with how varied and engaging the exercises were. They felt like Goliath was doing a great job of coming up with new challenges that really tested their students' understanding.
So no more rinse and repeat with the same old boring exercises. That's what I like to hear.
Yeah, the teachers were really happy about that. They felt like it kept the students more motivated and helped them learn more effectively.
Were there any specific features of Goliath that the teachers really loved? Anything that stood out?
The template system was a huge hit. Teachers loved how they could just set up a template once and then let Goliath generate tons of variations. It saved them so much time.
I bet. As a teacher, I can only imagine how much time that would free up. Instead of creating endless worksheets, you can actually, teach.
Right. It lets teachers focus on what they do best, which is interacting with students and guiding their learning.
Did teachers have any favorite types of exercises?
You know those input-output exercises we talked about earlier where students have to figure out what the code will produce? Those were a big favorite.
Oh yeah, those can be tricky. I remember those. Why did teachers like Goliath's approach to those in particular?
They loved how Goliath actually runs the code in the background using those multiple valid inputs from the template. It guarantees that the answers are accurate, and it prevents students from just guessing or trying to game the system.
So it's like having a built-in fact checker that makes sure the exercises are always on point. That's really smart. But let's be honest, no system is perfect. Were there any areas where teachers felt like Goliath could improve? Any downsides?
There were a few things that came up. One of the things teachers mentioned was that the wording of some of the problem statements could be a bit awkward. You know how one of the AIs is in charge of generating that written text?
Right, like the AI is trying to be a creative writing teacher.
Well, it seems like the AI could still use a bit of work on its writing style. Teachers said that sometimes the phrasing could be a bit clunky or unnatural, not quite as clear and concise as a human teacher might write it.
So even AI has room to grow. I guess you can't fully replace a good teacher just yet.
Exactly. There's still a need for that human touch, especially when it comes to things like language and communication.
But is that something that could be improved? Can AI learn to write more like a human?
Absolutely. These AI models are constantly learning and evolving. As they are exposed to more data and receive more feedback, they get better and better at generating human quality text. It's just a matter of time and training.
Okay, so there's hope for the AI writing teachers of the future. What about that special language teachers use to create the templates, that DSL thing? Did they find it easy to use?
For the most part, yes. It is a bit unique, so there was a slight learning curve. But most teachers said they found it fairly intuitive after a bit of practice. The researchers who developed Goliath really tried to make it as user-friendly as possible.
That's really important. You don't want teachers to get bogged down trying to learn a whole new programming language just to create these exercises.
Mhm.
Were there any other issues or challenges that came up for teachers?
One practical issue was stability. Sometimes the connection between Goliath and those AI models would get a little glitchy, especially when lots of people were using the system at the same time.
Ah, yes, the classic tech gremlins,
Yeah.
always popping up at the worst possible moment.
Exactly. But that's to be expected with any new technology, especially one that's pushing the boundaries like this.
Fair enough. Overall, it sounds like teachers were pretty impressed with Goliath. Do they have any suggestions for future development? Any big ideas for how to make it even better?
They did. One of the most common requests was to expand Goliath to support other programming languages. Right now, it's just focused on Python, which is great for beginners.
Yeah, Python is a great starting point, but eventually you'll want to branch out.
Right. So teachers were hoping to see support for languages like Java, JavaScript, C++, A, you name it. The more, the merrier.
Makes sense. Give students more options and let them explore different programming paradigms. Any other cool ideas that came up?
Teachers also talked about wanting to use Goliath to generate entire practice tests, not just individual exercises.
Oh, wow. So instead of just having AI-powered exercises sprinkled throughout a course, you could have whole AI-generated tests.
Exactly. Imagine a system that could create a personalized practice test for each student, adjusting the difficulty and focus based on their individual needs.
That's next-level stuff. Personalized learning taken to a whole new dimension. Were there any other futuristic visions floating around?
One teacher had a really interesting idea. What if Goliath could go beyond just generating variations of exercises and actually analyze a student's entire performance history? So it could track their progress over time, see what they're struggling with, and then
And then use that information to create even more targeted exercises and challenges. Sort of like a personalized learning path that adapts as the student learns.
exactly. It would be like having a personal AI tutor who's constantly monitoring your progress and adjusting your learning plan in real time.
That would be incredible. It's like science fiction becoming reality. But before we get too carried away with futuristic dreams, let's bring it back down to earth for a minute. We talked about the downsides and the cool features, but what did teachers see as the biggest benefits of using Goliath? What really sold them on it?
The number one benefit, hands down, was saving time. Teachers were absolutely thrilled with how much time Goliath freed up for them. No more spending hours and hours creating different versions of the same exercises.
I can imagine that would be a huge relief for teachers who are already stretched thin.
It was. Goliath took care of all the tedious, repetitive tasks so teachers could focus on the things that really matter, like teaching and interacting with their students.
Anything that gives teachers more time to teach is a win in my book. Were there any other big advantages that stood out?
Yeah, teachers also felt like Goliath helped them create more effective and engaging exercises. The variety and personalization that Goliath offers really seem to resonate with students, keeping them more motivated and focused.
So it's not just about making things easier for teachers, it's actually improving the learning experience for everyone.
Exactly. And it also raises some really interesting questions about the role of the teacher in a future where AI is playing a bigger role in education.
That's a big one. A lot of people worry that AI will eventually make teachers obsolete. But from what we've been talking about, it seems like Goliath takes a very different approach.
It does. Goliath isn't about replacing teachers, it's about empowering them. It handles the repetitive tasks, but it still relies on the teacher's expertise to design the curriculum, guide the learning process, and provide that human connection that's so important in education.
So it's more of a partnership, a collaboration between human and artificial intelligence.
Exactly. Each side brings its unique strengths to the table. AI brings efficiency and personalization, while teachers bring creativity, empathy, and the ability to inspire.
It sounds like the perfect team.
I think so. And this brings us to a really crucial point. As AI becomes more prevalent in education, we need to start thinking differently about the role of the teacher. It's not about fearing the future, it's about shaping it.
That's a great way to put it. We need to embrace the possibilities that AI offers, while also ensuring that it's used in a way that benefits all learners.
Couldn't agree more. The future of education is in our hands, and AI can be a powerful tool for creating a more engaging, equitable, and effective learning experience for everyone.
So we've spent this whole deep dive talking about Goliath and AI-powered coding exercises, but now I want to zoom out a little bit. Look at the bigger picture. What does this tell us about the future of education in general?
I think Goliath is a really great example of a much broader trend that we're seeing in education. This move towards personalized learning. For centuries, education has been this very one-size-fits-all system. Same textbook, same lecture, same test for everyone. But AI has the potential to completely upend that model.
Yeah, it's like moving from mass production to custom tailoring. Instead of trying to force everyone into the same mold, we can use AI to create learning experiences that are really fine-tuned to each individual student.
Exactly. And Goliath is the perfect example. It can create unique exercises for each student, adjusting the difficulty, the content, the specific challenges, all to match that student's learning style and their progress.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Imagine if every student had their own custom learning path, guided by an AI tutor that was constantly adapting to their needs. That would be incredible.
It would be revolutionary. And it's not just about individual instruction either. AI can also take a lot of those tedious and time-consuming tasks off of teachers' plates, things like grading, lesson planning, even managing the classroom, that would free up teachers to do what they do best. Mentoring students, encouraging critical thinking, inspiring a love of learning.
Right. Sometimes people worry that AI will replace teachers altogether, but I actually think it could make teachers even more important by letting them focus on those uniquely human aspects of education that AI just can't replicate.
Absolutely. The best learning experiences always involve a mix of human connection and intelligent technology. It's not about replacing teachers, it's about giving them superpowers, giving them the tools to be even better at what they do.
It's like in those sci-fi movies where the robots take over all the jobs.
Mm.
I think the reality is going to be a lot more nuanced. AI will definitely change a lot of professions, including education, but it's probably going to be more about augmenting human capabilities than about completely replacing us.
I completely agree. The key is to think of AI as a partner, a powerful tool that can help us achieve things that we could never do on our own.
And that means that both educators and students need to be ready to adapt and evolve as AI changes the world around us. It's not enough to just learn a specific skill set anymore. We need to be lifelong learners, constantly updating our knowledge and skills.
Exactly. The future belongs to those who are comfortable with change, who can learn and unlearn and relearn as the world evolves. And AI is going to be a crucial partner in that journey, helping us navigate the complexities of the 21st century and beyond.
I think that's such a powerful message. This has been an amazing deep dive. I feel like we've learned so much about how AI can personalize learning, empower teachers, and ultimately transform the way we educate ourselves.
It has been a great conversation, but as with any powerful technology, it's important that we use AI thoughtfully and ethically, making sure that it promotes equity, accessibility, and human flourishing.
Absolutely. AI has the potential to revolutionize education, but we have to be mindful of its limitations and potential downsides. We need to make sure it's used in a way that benefits everyone. So as you continue on your own learning journeys, remember to stay curious, stay adaptable, and never stop asking questions. The future is in our hands, and AI can be a powerful ally in shaping that future. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
It's been a pleasure. And until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.